My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
You are entering the Stone Zone, and I am your genial host, Roger Stone. We have a jam-packed show for you today. President Donald Trump has nominated Dr. Callie Means, a physician and health policy advocate with close ties to HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as his Surgeon General. I'm very excited about this nomination. I actually think from a political point of view, Callie Means and her brother Callie Means played key roles in the I would say realignment of American politics, and their advocacy for Donald Trump after being earlier supporters of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. helped build this realignment that brought millions of Democrats and independents and younger voters into the Trump fold. On Truth Social yesterday, President Trump said, "I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Callie Means will be nominated as our next Surgeon General of the United States." Callie has impeccable MAHA, that means Make America Healthy Again, credentials, and will work closely with our wonderful Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to ensure a successful implementation of our agenda in order to reverse the chronic disease epidemic in this country and ensure great health in the future for all Americans. Her academic achievements, together with her life's work, are absolutely outstanding. Dr. Callie Means has the potential to be one of the finest Surgeon Generals in U.S. history. Congratulations to Callie. Now, it's important to note, as I say, that Callie Means and her brother Callie Means, who's going to join us later in the show, served as key advisors initially to Robert Kennedy's 2024 presidential bid, and advocated early that Kennedy join Trump and endorse him. This full realignment in American politics since the 1960s, in which common sense Democrats and independents who used to consider themselves part of the old Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy and Harry Truman saw that the only common sense choice was Donald Trump. Means has been widely praised, drawing acclaim from conservative pundits like my good friend Tucker Carlson, as well as the podcaster Joe Rogan. She's particularly good on the issue of processed foods, which to me is definitely a contributor to the range of conditions, including obesity, infertility, Alzheimer's, depression, and even erectile dysfunction. After listening to Robert Kennedy, I'm afraid to eat just about anything. Now, Dr. Jeanette Neshwiat, initially nominated by President Trump for U.S. Surgeon General, faced a lot of criticism, including from me, leading to withdrawal of her nomination. The main concerns about her included her support for the COVID-19 vaccination mandate, and also the fact that she referred to the COVID-19 vaccinations as a gift from God, and therefore advocated for their widespread use. By the way, my view is, of course, it would be up to the choice of the individual whether you would take the vaccination or not. I believe in health freedom. But Neshwiat supported mask mandates, including double masking, and endorsed masking children in schools. She praised social media platforms like Facebook for censoring what she called anti-vax information, urging others to do the same. Never thought she was a good choice to be a Surgeon General. She also had questionable medical credentials, with critics questioning whether her medical qualifications and expertise suggested discrepancies about her alma mater and expressing doubts about her suitability for the job. I would point out to you, by the way, she happened to be the sister-in-law of Mike Waltz, the former national security advisor who was ousted from that job and moved over to the UN. That raised some early questions about nepotism and political entanglements. Finally, she received alignment with establishment narratives in general. I'm glad to see the president made what I think is a very wise decision here. We're going to talk to Callie Means, who is Casey Means' brother, about why this is such a great appointment. I actually changed the way that I eat after reading a book by both Dr. Casey Means and Callie Means entitled Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. We talk about that a little later. In the meantime, we now have our first American Pope. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was elected the 267th Pope. He took the name Leo. I guess it would be Leo the 14th. He is from Chicago. He's the first American Pope. I am concerned about some of the things that he has written that are critical of President Trump. Now, I think, generally speaking, popes should stay out of American politics. There is a difference between when the Pope speaks at cathedra, that means he's speaking in his formal role as the leader of the church, and when he is speaking pastorally, which is when politics seems to creep in. I was a critic of Pope Francis, largely for several reasons. First and foremost, because of a deal he made with the Chinese Communist Party, where essentially he gave them veto power over who the bishops and priests in China would be. Then he ignored Cardinal Joseph Zen when reaching that agreement. I remember when the Catholic Church was a bulwark against communism back in the days of Reverend Fulton Sheen. I also don't like the fact that Pope Francis brought back Cardinal McCarrick, who was a vicious pedophile, making McCarrick a key advisor to the Pope inside the Pentagon. Now, I'm going to give this Pope the benefit of the doubt. He's described as a moderate, someone who can bridge the conservative and progressive wings of the church. But he has posted criticism of President Trump's immigration policies. I'm not sure where that's addressed in the Bible, as well as criticism of Vice President J.D. Vance. White smoke appeared from Sistine Chapel at approximately 6:08 Roman time, following the chiming of the Vatican's bells, which confirmed for the faithful that a new pope had been chosen. Robert Francis Prevost was elevated to the rank of cardinal by Pope Francis, giving a consistory view of the Vatican. Now, I point out again that Pope Francis appointed 80% of those who were voting in this conclave of the College of Cardinals, which is why I thought it was unlikely, unfortunately, that they did not go to a more conservative or traditional-oriented pope. I would like to see a pope who is a critic of radical Muslim, who is a critic of Marxism and authoritarianism, and who adheres to the church's basic teachings. In fact, I think those who want to go to the Latin Mass should be allowed to do so. Francis issued essentially an order reversing Pope Benedict's liberalization that allowed Catholics to do that. We shall see. President Trump congratulated the new Pope on Truth Social, saying, "Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It's such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country." The president says he looks forward to meeting the Pope. Once again, I'm going to give the Pope the benefit of the doubt, but some of his political pronouncements online are troubling to me. 2014, Pope Francis appointed Prevost as apostolic administrator of the Diocese of Chiclayo in Peru. He was consecrated as bishop later that year. He served as a bishop there until 2023. While progressive in social matters, Pope Leo maintains some traditional stances on key doctrinal issues. He opposes, for example, the ordination of women as deacons, expressing concerns that such changes might not address underlying challenges within the church. I again think that the jury is out. In his first appearance as Pope, the new Pope wore the traditional red cape of the papacy, a cape that Francis had eschewed when he was elected. See, I go for the costumes. I like the pageantry of the church. Pope Leo's choices to take that traditional name and to appear in traditional papal garb was something that Benedict did and Francis did not, are small but encouraging signs to those of us who want a man who subordinates himself to the office and understands the importance of continuity and tradition within the church. His choice of Leo as a papal name is an interesting choice. Perhaps it is meant to evoke the beloved Leo XIII, who wrote the great 1890 encyclical Requiem Novarum, which championed the rights of workers in a changing world, often heralded by Catholics, like my parents, as a populist document that advocates for the rights of the common man. Here's a little good news. The Pope is a registered Republican, has voted in several Republican primaries. He's also reportedly a Chicago Cubs fan. But as I say, he's expressed criticism of President Trump's policies, particularly concerning immigration. Now, to me, immigration is a pretty cut and dried issue. Illegal, violent immigrants in our country are dangerous, and the president has a constitutional right to deport them. This is not a religious issue. It's not an issue for the church. It is an issue to be decided in elections, and I think we decided it in the recent election. In the meantime, we also know that Ed Martin, who was the president's appointee to be the U.S. Attorney for D.C., his name was withdrawn today by President Trump. This is because the senator from North Carolina, Tom Tillis, member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, stoutly refused to vote for Martin. I think this is quite a setback. Ed Martin was a law and order U.S. attorney, but more importantly, he would have fought and exposed the weaponization of the judicial system, particularly in D.C. I know a little bit about that, having been put through a Soviet-style show trial during the Russian collusion hoax when I, in fact, did nothing wrong. But this is exciting. President Trump is reportedly considering picking my 77 WABC colleague, Judge Jeanine Pirro, as potentially the interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. Now, Judge Pirro is a former Westchester district attorney and prosecutor. She's both a good friend of President Donald Trump as well as Attorney General Pam Bondi. I also think from a political point of view, President Trump now must demonstrate that this is his party and he must foster a challenge to Senator Tom Tillis, who's running for re-election in 2026 and I think just ended his political career. Anyone who doesn't think that Donald Trump is not dominant in a Senate primary, particularly in a conservative state like North Carolina, doesn't understand the dynamics. You are listening to The Stone Zone. I'm Roger Stone. We'll be back with the inside skinny on what's happening in Washington and the world, and we'll be right back.
This is The Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. When you have 4 new tires, every drive feels fresh. Right now, buy 3 select tires and get 1 for just $1 during the Cadillac Certified Service Fresh Start Tire event. Visit Cadillac.com/service offers or see dealer for full details. At participating U.S. GM dealers only. Highest or equal value tire will be $1. Offer ends 5/31/2025. Not available with other offers.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Jif peanut butter. It's that jiffing good, it doesn't really need advertising. So instead, enjoy the calming sounds of the ocean. Jif. Ooh, it's that jiffing good. Get your Jif at Jif.com.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. We were talking about the fact that President Donald Trump announced that he was withdrawing the nomination of Ed Martin as the acting U.S. Attorney in D.C. Ed Martin's appointment struck fear in the hearts of the establishment because, well, what if he dug into the Russian collusion hoax, the greatest single dirty trick and abuse of power in American political history, in which the full power and authority of the U.S. government was used, utilizing 2 pieces of fraudulent evidence, the so-called Steele dossier, and the false claim that the Russians hacked the DNC, as the pretext to try to overturn the election of a duly elected president. That would be Donald Trump. This is something which Vice President Joe Biden, as well as President Barack Obama, FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, all of these people desperately fear being held accountable. And I think they were afraid that Ed Martin might hold them accountable. I'd love to see Judge Jeanine Pirro in that job. It's only reported that she's being considered. It hasn't been reported that she's been offered the job or that she would accept it. But I must tell you, she would be really great. Again, I say Senator Tom Tillis, the sole Republican come out against Martin, has now painted a political bullseye on his back. It is reported that he actually said in one of these meetings that Ashley Babbitt, she was the unarmed Air Force veteran shot and killed in cold blood without warning while menacing no one. He actually said she deserved it. If that's true, then he deserves a Republican primary back in North Carolina. It is vitally important that a president demonstrate fairly early that you will not allow members of your own party to betray you. And if the president does not foster a primary against Tillis in North Carolina, well, then it will be a signal to other rhinos in the Senate that they can vote against the president's key initiatives and appointees with immunity. And that is dangerous for any president, particularly a president early in his term. Now, as we told you yesterday, President Trump made it clear that he has really no thoughts of running again in 2028. That's largely been trolling, although it sure would be popular in the Republican Party. But I do think he has to lay down the law in the grand old party. Coming up next, Callie Means. His sister was just appointed Surgeon General of the United States. I think this is a great appointment. Callie Means was one of the key players in building the coalition, the realignment that elected Donald Trump, that brought millions of Democrats and independents and Kennedy supporters into the Trump fold. We're going to talk about both the politics and the policy of this important appointment with Callie Means when we come back. This, I think, is a very timely interview. There are some online who seem to be criticizing this appointment of Dr. Casey Means as the Surgeon General. We're going to talk about what their motives might be and maybe who's put them up to it. We'll be right back with Callie Means.
Your gut affects everything, even your mood. So Ollie created 2 brand new products to take care of your insides. Ollie Big 10 Probiotic has 10 strains of probiotics, their most ever, to support a healthy gut microbiome, immune system, and stress response. And Ollie Super Good Superfoods delivers 15 superfoods in tasty gummy form. Find them at ollie.com and exclusively at Walmart. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
Hosting season's here. Are your windows guest ready? Early access to Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale is on now. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega sale early access now. Save up to 40% site-wide, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. You are back in the Stone Zone. Joining me now is Callie Means. He is the co-author with his sister, Dr. Casey Means, who was announced today by President Donald Trump as the next Surgeon General of the United States, of a terrific book. It is called Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. I want to be honest with you, this book literally changed my life. Almost 2 years ago, Trump campaign manager, now White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, gave me this book, and I read it with enthusiasm. It changed the way I eat and the way I live. It's had a profound effect on me. And then I got to know Callie Means, who I think was absolutely one of the key figures in building this grand coalition to bring voters who were previously Democrats and independents, people who for whom health freedom was a priority, into the Trump coalition to win a smashing comeback victory. So, Callie Means, welcome into the Stone Zone.
Hey, Roger. You've been a hero of the Maha agenda since day one, and it's great to be on.
So I'm looking across the internet here, and I see a lot of what I think is very suspicious criticism of Dr. Callie Means. So I want to take this in two parts. First of all, let's talk about her academic credentials and her qualifications for this job, because one does not have to be a surgical resident and performing surgeries to be the Surgeon General.
Yeah, Roger. I mean, just backing up, right? Casey, is my sister, but she has been just her life's mission for the past year and a half has been to communicate these MAHA ideas through a conservative lens of how we can transform institutions and help President Trump get elected. She was integral in getting Bobby connected to him and, going on Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, actually the most listened to podcast last year, Tucker Carlson, where she talked about the really civilizational imperative of getting Trump elected to take on these special interests. Casey's story, the book, Good Energy, which, has sold over 1 million copies, talks about her journey. And Casey has been successful her entire career. She was president of her Stanford undergrad class. She was top of her Stanford med school class, and she was top of her surgical residency program. But Casey has incredible moral courage. And she shocked our family when she came to us and she said after more than a decade of medical training, she's leaving the system because people aren't getting healthier. She had no plan. She did that over pure just insight over it's not working. And what she did is she started a company and she started advocating. And the impact that she has had on American patients, and Roger, I appreciate your testimony on that. She has impacted millions of people through empowering them to take matters into their own hands, to not listen to their doctor right away when they write that prescription pad out. And she left the medical system. That is the epitome of her story. So when Bobby Kennedy announced her, he said that the fact that Casey has left the medical system, she is a doctor, she's a graduate of Stanford Med School, but the fact that she walked away, unlike so many other doctors who stay in that system, that's why she's Surgeon General. That's why she's the nominee. It's not in spite of that. It is because she left the system. And I think what's happening, Roger, here is, there's been tremendous outpouring of support, of course, from, Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Donald Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk. I mean, Casey's really mobilized an incredible MAHA army, and, there was incredible support. But I heard today, Roger, and I'll tell you this right now, I just got a call, an insider tip. The pharmaceutical industry and special interests, with President Trump talking about pharma pricing and with Bobby Kennedy taking decisive action, they've declared Casey enemy number one, and you're seeing a lot of interesting things pop up. She's both been called a unqualified hippie, and she's also been called a deep state plant. So they're throwing the kitchen sink at her, which is not surprising, but pretty interesting.
Yeah, I smell the exact same thing. We saw this before, by the way. Remember, just a few weeks ago, we interviewed you here in the Stone Zone, and you had all of these so-called influencers who were pushing for the SNAP program, that's basically the food stamp program, to be able to spend money on soda. That was all paid for. That was orchestrated by a public relations firm offering these so-called influencers up to $1,000 per post to oppose reform in that program. I see the exact same thing happen here. I see paid influencers from Big Pharma and Big Ag throwing money around to certain conservative influencers to throw dirt on Dr. Casey Means. It is outrageous. And for those who say, well, she wasn't for Trump in 2016, exactly, which is why she was an important bridge, as were you, to people who worked for Trump in 2016, who supported Robert Kennedy and his agenda early, and then helped form this grand coalition to both make America great again and make America healthy again. This is the greatest single realignment in American politics since the 1960s, and I think it will be a permanent one. So as you look online and you see the aspersions being tossed her way, recognize that a lot of that is paid for. And for those who don't understand, politics is about addition. Politics is about expansion of your voter pool, not contraction. Let's get into some of these issues here. What will be the principal difference between your sister and the Biden Surgeon General?
The Biden Surgeon General wrote a report for the Biden administration's priorities on health care. That report did not contain the words diabetes. It did not contain the word obesity. It did not contain the word heart disease. It did not contain the words chronic disease. The report mentioned the word vaccine 47 times and the word equity 41 times. The Biden administration, Surgeon General, said that the greatest threat to American health is misinformation, not diabetes or childhood obesity. The Biden administration was completely asleep at the wheel on the chronic disease crisis that makes up 90% of healthcare costs and 9 out of 10 American deaths. What the industry and what the forces that want the same thing that we have today, which is higher costs and lower life expectancy than any other developed country, they see Casey, they see Bobby Kennedy as an existential threat. Because, Roger, this message is just common sense. The reason President Trump is going to realign American politics is because the left has given up on protecting kids. They've given up on common sense. They became the party of the experts during COVID, right? And they dropped the ball on talking about the chronic disease crisis. The reason you had a lot of women be first-time Trump voters, a lot of young people, a lot of independents, is because President Trump's talking about common sense, and he cannot be bought. It is extraordinary, Roger. I'm at the White House right now. I'm looking at the West Wing, and President Trump is in that building, and he is telling Bobby Kennedy, he is telling Pete Hegseth, he is telling Tulsi Gabbard, he is telling these people, I've got your back. Drive transformational change. Now, Casey, along with Bobby Kennedy, is the greatest communicator for these common sense agenda items that exist in this world. And Casey is going to do something extraordinary for President Trump beyond just policy. She's going to make the moral case for how we need to transition our institutions to empower disease reversal. That is an existential threat. And you're absolutely right, Roger. It's very easy to see. They're literally using a quote that she said from a Joe Rogan interview about us not supporting President Trump. We went on Joe Rogan and we prayed before that episode that we want to inspire undecided voters to support President Trump. So we strategically went in there and said that we were brought along from a process in 2016, from not supporting Trump to believing his election was the most important in our lifetimes. We strategically said that because we wanted to give license and talk to Maha moms to get them to vote for President Trump. I think Casey led a great effort with Bobby Kennedy to talk to millions and millions of moms who eventually became first-time Trump voters. They're trying to use that as an attack against her now. They're throwing the kitchen sink. It's unbelievable. But I do believe, Roger, that as power is being executed, as President Trump is giving green light to reform our institutions, you have forces that are going to be paying social media influencers, paying the media, doing every dirty trick in the book to not just malign Casey. They're going to come after Bobby much harder. They're going to be coming after the president. They're going to be coming after everyone because we are trying to reform institutions here to create better outcomes for the American people. Right now, the HHS is the largest department in government. It's the biggest line item on the federal budget, and we're getting sicker as a result. We have to change this.
Yeah, I was very encouraged. I think it was day before yesterday when I saw that Robert Kennedy was leading a policy to do away with a number of dyes and additives that are already illegal to be added to foods in Europe, but still very prevalent in our foods, particularly in breakfast foods, for example, cereals. You would think that we would be more enlightened than the Europeans, but no. Big ag, big food, big pharma has gotten away with murder, and now they're going to be held accountable. Just the fact that you have a team here ready to deal with the question of chronic childhood disease, I think is one of the most important goals of the Trump administration. And Robert Kennedy and Dr. Casey Means are exactly the right people. As far as the politics of this, I studied the polling, because this is what I do for 50 years in American politics in the vineyard. I studied the polling in these swing states, and it was the late-breaking votes who had previously been inclined to vote for Robert Kennedy, particularly women, going for the Trump ticket that allowed us to win this smashing victory. So for those who are looking for purity, you weren't with us in 2016, politics is about addition, as I said earlier. What would you say is the single biggest problem with the pharmaceutical industry today, and how will your sister help tackle that?
This is what Casey talks about and I talk about, and this is how I think the administration is seeing it from what I'm seeing, Roger, is that the problem isn't with the drug itself. Like the problem that Ozempic, this new weight loss drug, exists, that's not a problem. We support American innovation. The problem is that the drug is then recommended by the government, by our medical authorities, which are captured as the first-line defense. So, Roger, I'm shocked putting together this report for President Trump on the chronic disease crisis. Do you know that SSRI prescriptions, antidepressants, they've gone up 600% since 2020 among teenage girls? Adderall prescriptions, which are stimulants, which are one molecule away from crystal meth, have gone up 300% among high schoolers in the past 7 years. We are over-medicating our children because that's what our medical authorities recommend. They're now recommending Ozempic, a weight loss shot that you have to take for your entire life, to 12-year-olds who are obese. So Ozempic is great. We should have American innovation, but we shouldn't be recommending those things as a first-line defense based on our corporate-captured HHS. And we shouldn't be paying 10 times more for these drugs than they do in Germany and Europe. Roger, Eli Lilly, an American company who makes these GLP-1 weight loss drugs, an American company, charges patients in Germany and Sweden 5 to 10 times less for the same drug. That's un-American. It's unpatriotic. President Trump, has talked about this. He's not happy about it. But, we want mass deregulation at the FDA. We want therapeutic innovation. But these companies need to be incentivized to create products that promote life, that extend life, that reverse disease, not just get on this treadmill where we're giving kids antidepressants, Adderall, Ozempic, and a bunch of other drugs for their entire life. This system we have right now is corporate capture, and it's going to be, years to change. But what Bobby Kennedy and President Trump are going to do, and Casey, when she's confirmed, is going to communicate better than anyone in the country, is we need to get common sense, quick wins, one after the next, to start bending the system in a different direction.
Yeah, I think we've already seen that. Robert Kennedy has hit the ground running. His announcement yesterday that he was going to get to the bottom of this geoengineering, what some people call chemtrails. They used to call us nuts, crazy when we talked about this. But I'm sorry, there are toxins that are being sprayed into the air. We need to get to the bottom of who is doing it and why. I admire his courage, and I think that Dr. Callie Means is going to be a great addition. I want to talk about your book for 1 second because it really did change my life. Your book, Good Energy, The Surprising Connection Between Metabolism and Limitless Health. Folks, if you haven't read this book, I strongly recommend it to you. As I say, it was given to me before I had ever heard of Callie or Callie Means. It was given to me by Susie Wiles, who told me she swore by it. It really has changed the way that I eat and the way I live. Tell us what the most important thing in the book is.
Something Casey is going to talk about, and I think even more than any policy, Bobby Kennedy and Casey and the team at the HHS is going to talk to Americans about, is that it's simple, Roger. Right now, there are billions of dollars spent on nutrition research, huge bureaucracies on nutrition. We just need to eat more whole food made by American farmers. Right now, a child eats 70% of their diet ultra-processed food. If they can just put 80% whole food on their plate, whether they're a vegan or a carnivore, just stick to whole food. If schools, the school lunches the federal government pays for gets more to whole food made by American farmers, that's a huge win. We're more sedentary, Roger, than every other country. You're going to see President Trump and Bobby Kennedy reinvigorate the Presidential Fitness Commission. We're going to get kids moving again. Kids spend less than an hour outside. I mean, these are basic things that our institutions are letting people down. And we're going to have common sense. The greatest threat to pharma right now, and the greatest way to compel that institution to create products that actually promote life, is to get kids healthy, is to have them eating whole food made by American farmers. So Casey's not going to be putting out all these press releases, with complications. She's going to be steering Americans to the fact that health is simple, and it's our patriotic duty to have healthy kids, to serve them good food. And that's going to transform the country. Right now, 77% of military-aged youth aren't eligible to join the military because of mental health issues or chronic disease issues. She's going to drive that number down. And a lot of this is communication. and just rallying the country to this cause, which is happening. You see this right now with Bobby Kennedy. So that's what history is going to look back on the Trump administration on. In 50 years, we're going to look at chronic disease rates. They're going to be at an all-time high this year. I mean this, Roger, because I think they're already, you're seeing them start to come down. This will be the highest year we've ever had in history of chronic disease. It's going to start going down, and that's going to be because of President Trump.
All right, we have to leave it there. I want to thank my guest, Callie Means, for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Whatever you do, folks, don't touch that dial because, well, we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. The Stone Zone. This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. There's an old saying in American politics, you can't beat somebody with nobody. And, well, if you look at the Democrat Party of today and look forward, they don't have any strong candidates. President Trump made it clear in his Meet the Press interview that although he was flattered, he is well aware of the fact that the U.S. Constitution essentially prohibits him from running again. But instead of just anointing J.D. Vance, his vice president, while he said that Vance would have a leg up, which within our party, the Republican Party, certainly would, he also said that it would be a big field that could include even, say, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I've said here on the show that I think Tulsi Gabbard, the former Congresswoman, former Democrat, now a Republican, the head of the Director of National Intelligence, is a likely possible candidate. In the Oval Office today, President Trump called out former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, the former air traffic controller, for the problems currently impacting U.S. airports like Newark International Airport. Trump also called out Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat who has repeatedly encouraged violence against Republicans. Buttigieg, speaking of Buttigieg, the president said, that guy has no clue. He drives to work on his bicycle with his husband on the back, which is a nice, loving relationship, but he doesn't have any clue. Is he actually a contender for president? Between he and Crocker, you can have that party. And then there's J.B. Pritzker. This guy is so fat, when he walks down the street, the cops say, hey, break it up. No, this guy is so fat he has his own zip code. People will not remember this, but while running for governor, he actually had some toilets removed from his mansion in order to save money on local property taxes. And very recently, he was in New Hampshire saying things about Republicans should have no peace that I led to believe was an advocacy for insurrection. If any Republican said that, say, after post-January 6th, you would have been arrested. But there is J.B. Pritzker, the multi-millionaire governor of Illinois, essentially preaching violence. In the meantime, if you looked at the polls, the candidate leading the Democrat polls for 2028 would be Kamala Harris. And if she runs for governor of California, which I believe she will, she would again be the front runner. So maybe we're looking at a Kamala Harris candidacy, which would be fine with me. Or then there's AOC. Don't think that she won't run. First of all, she can raise the money in millions of small donations. And why not? Bernie Sanders probably like to run, but well, Bernie could be a little long in the tooth. I don't think they have much of a field. I think our party has a great field. Thanks for joining us. And until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed.